My in-ground sprouting technique is to place cinder blocks on end, slightly buried in the soil, mulch heavily around them, and plant all of the holes individually with distinct seeds so I can tell their parentage. The idea here is mostly that these are all seedlings of isolated breeding pairs or from orchards that have cultivar trees. And these are all labeled in a key. I'll be potting these up shortly and restarting the cycle soon. The seeds are stratified now and in my fridge, and when they're planted, they probably won't start to germinate until the heat of summer, sometime in late June, maybe July. And we'll see seedlings emerge sometime towards fall. So these are from last year. Looking at our key, we can see LBR in the top left block. Next to that is Tollgate Home, which is my grafted branch of Tollgate. Within both of those blocks, planted at 7 o'clock, we have a double planting of Sweet Virginia seeds from the Tollgate nursery. Ivan takes up the next 3 blocks. Ivan was the largest fruit at the Ohio Pawpaw Festival 2022, which I made off with after volunteering at the NAPGA booth and volunteering to review it on my YouTube channel at Creme Dementia. Please like and subscribe. We suspect that that fruit was a Susquehanna, though it is not certain. Another block was devoted to Chris Rice's seeds. He has a Shenandoah pollinating a KSU Atwood, I believe, and vice versa. And the last is Jack Sharp, which was pollinated using Tollgate pollen from my home branch. Jack Sharp is a local pawpaw enthusiast, and I used his name to represent his single mature tree standing in 2022 that we pollinated using pollen from my home branch of Tollgate. Jack Sharp's tree is a sibling to mine, and it is a seedling from the South 6th Street trees here in DeKalb. Puddin' Cup is one of those 2 trees on South 6th Street, and it is also the 3rd place winner of the best tasting pawpaw at the 2015 Ohio Pawpaw Festival. And luckily I videoed this because I think I may have forgotten about the runty seedling in the diamond that's kind of exposed near center frame. That has the son of Rupah Charles, Chuck and Rachel's pawpaw tree, that we pollinated with overlease pollen from Mark Hildebrandt's orchard. Rupah Charles is a son of Puddin' Cup as well. Here I'm using a tent stake to loosen the dirt from the side of these cinder blocks. The wide-walled cinder blocks for building seem to work a bit better than the thinner-walled decorative cinder blocks, but I had both on hand that came with the house, so I'm sort of using what I've got. I'll have to double check, but I think Susquehanna may be a later ripening cultivar, which may not be best suited for, quote, up north. I may try to find homes for these with friends who live to the south of me, or maybe more towards Chicagoland. Oh, the foreman says work faster, so here we go. I think I accidentally killed one of these back seedlings by being a nosy Parker last summer and disturbing the seed coat while digging in the soil to see if it had germinated. That snapped the taproot from the seed, which was still feeding it, and I think that was unfortunately the death knell. So just leave them alone. In another in-ground planter that I have, I found seeds planted last spring that are just now germinating this year. They're sort of weird and slow, and that's why I just mimic their normal conditions and sort of stick to their timetable with this setup. I typically keep a wire cage over this made from the same concrete reinforcement mesh that I use for making tomato cages and protecting my pawpaw tree trunks. In another planting that I have, rabbits seem to nibble the tops off of every last one. The roots, however, look healthy and will probably re-sprout, so I've just potted them up anyway. Here's a nice taproot on this one. You want to try to preserve as much of that and the hair roots as possible. Cinder blocks kind of keep them separated. This potting soil I'm using is a mixture of vermiculite and some other potting container mix, just sort of what I had on hand. I'm adding a little bit of the dirt from where these were planted. Just seemed like a good idea since this potting mix seems so light. I don't know. They don't seem to care too much. I'll definitely give them a really good soak after this because this potting mixture is so dry and the pawpaws do not like being bare root for very long. I'm also going to keep them in the shade. When they're young, they really don't like full sun. I think it's more important to try to preserve these seedlings rather than to try to get a lot of growth out of them in their early years. So I just keep them under my mature pawpaw trees, which are already in the understory, so pretty deep shade. Some people have shade structures that they make in order to mimic this sort of environment. These pots are 4 by 4 by 14 inch, one tall tree pots, I believe, from Stewie and Sons. They are pretty much industry standard for pawpaws, and they're nice because they fit 9 to a milk crate. A milk crate full of these seedlings is plenty heavy. This is an engraving tool you can usually find pretty cheaply. I think it's for people to use to mark their tools with their initials so people don't steal them. I find it works pretty well for marking these tree pots. I'm assigning each of these a serial number of sorts above the Stewie and Sons logo and facing the pots outward so I can read the labels easily. They are a little hard to see, but they won't wear off. Metal tags with wire twists can sometimes damage young seedlings' trunks. It also seems sometimes like an unnecessary investment. Here we can see that this mark is pretty clear. This is a cross from Ivan planted in 23. I tried using color-coded plant tags as well as corresponding zip ties threaded through a hole punched in the containers, but both of them faded in the sun. The marker on the plant tags faded as well. I wouldn't trust any of them for more than a year. So we'll give these a good soak and hope that my engraved labels stay legible for years to come. These choice seedlings will probably be transplanted to appropriate locations, but similarly sized plants might be used for rootstock and spend several years in the containers before being successfully grafted. Pro tip, move them before you water them. Here they are in the shade, in the tall pots, along with some seedlings sprouted this spring in the Hiawatha greenhouse.